The event today is brought to you free of charge by CBDC NORTIP, Grenfell Campus, and the Navigate program here in Corner Brook. Also, before we start, I'd like to begin with a land acknowledgement. We'd like you to take a moment to respectfully acknowledge that the lands on which Memorial University's campuses are situated are in the traditional territories of diverse Indigenous groups. And we acknowledge with respect the diverse histories and cultures of the Beothuk, Mi'kmaq, Innu, and Inuit of this province. So we'd like you to take a moment to acknowledge the lands on which you find yourself today as well. So to get started, I'd like to introduce our co-hosts and partners here today. We've got Dr. Mary Perez from Grenfell Campus, who's done a lot of work to help organize these different events and to help grow the ecosystem, the business ecosystem on the Great Northern Peninsula. Sheldon, who's going to be our presenter today, I'll give you an official introduction in just a moment. And Richard May, who's the Executive Director of CBDC NORTIP. So just to get started, I'd like to give you just a little bit of information about Navigate for anyone who's unfamiliar with our program and services. So my name is Allison Rowe, and I'm the manager of Navigate. So Navigate is a program that is a partnership between Grenfell Campus and CNA Corner Brook Campus. And we're here to offer support to entrepreneurs, be it existing businesses or people who want to become entrepreneurs on the west coast of Newfoundland. And that includes students as well. So we're here to support you at any stage of your entrepreneurial journey, to connect you to the resources you need to grow your business, to help you from the early idea stage, if you're looking to develop prototypes, if you're looking for marketing support, funding, networking, events, mentorship, different opportunities. That's something that we're here to offer. I'll put my contact information in chat again if anyone's interested in reaching out for support. I will mention as well that we have 3 service pillars. We have 2 entrepreneurship centers, and those are located on each of the CNA Corner Brook campus and Grenfell campuses. There's a business incubator located on the CNA campus, and we have 3 available offices for businesses who are looking for a resident office space, as well as a co-working space at the incubator. And there's also a maker space at Grenfell campus for product and prototype development. I will mention that our physical spaces are currently closed due to COVID, with the exception of students being able to come to the space at CNA right now. But we are still here to support you virtually, and we're hoping to get our doors open soon. So fingers crossed for a vaccine, everyone, that we all get it sooner rather than later. All right, so just a few housekeeping rules. We ask that if you're not speaking, during question and answer, if you can keep your microphone muted. If you're having any bandwidth or connection difficulties, you can turn off your camera. That usually helps. Also, just if in the event that we would experience something like a hack, there have been a lot of universities and whatnot have been hacked lately. The way that we'll handle that is we'll shut down the meeting immediately, and we'll send you out a new link and just start where we left off. So if that happens, don't worry, we're going to just keep going. All right. Also, stay tuned at the end of the meeting. We'll be sending out a link to get your feedback. We need your feedback so that we can continue to offer events like this. They help us know how to support you best, and also they help us in securing funding to do so. And we have a number of events coming up this month as well that I will send out information on. I'll put them over in chat. Sheldon's going to be offering 2 more sessions, one on email marketing, February 17th, one on March 4th as well on search engine optimization. Like I said, the Navigate website is going to be launched soon. And we also have an entrepreneur ecosystem coffee break in conjunction with Spicer Facilitation and Learning on February 18th. So I will put all of that over in chat. And I encourage you as well to sign up to our newsletter, because then you'll get the latest updates for all of the upcoming events and whatnot. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Sheldon. Some of you may have joined us for the last session. So Sheldon Payne is a digital marketing consultant. He's a certified Google Awards professional, and he's been providing small, medium, and Fortune 100 companies forward-thinking digital marketing campaigns for over 15 years now. So we're very fortunate to have Sheldon here today. Prior to starting Newfound Marketing, he was the digital marketing director for M5 Communications, and he spent time in Montreal and London, where he planned and delivered digital marketing strategies to Fortune 100 companies, including Hewlett Packard and Chevrolet Europe as part of their overall search marketing strategy. So Sheldon, from here, I will pass it over to you. If anyone has any questions, you can type them in chat, and we will also have a question and answer period at the end of the presentation.
Thank you so much, Allison, for the introduction. So I guess I know we've got about an hour and a half to 2 hours here, and there's a lot of information to cover. I think if you probably attended the last session, there's a lot of information to cover, and in this particular case for today, I do have a couple of exercises for you guys to do as well, to kind of have an opportunity to work on some of this and also to ask questions during the exercises. So we'll begin to kind of jump right in. So a little background. So just a little background, again, in the continuation to what Allison had mentioned there. So I'm the owner of Newfound Marketing. We're a digital marketing company here in St. John's. We have a staff of 12, with most of the employees are here in St. John's, but we do have a staff member in London and another staff member in Toronto. With the way the world is today, it's very easy to work remote and have remote employees. So we're fortunate enough to kind of have a couple of extra people from there. We provide companies with social media marketing strategies, inbound marketing strategies. We help companies with their SEO or their search engine optimization, which we will have a session on in a few weeks. And that is basically just making sure that when people do a search for your business, that you're ranking on the top of Google, when they're looking for a solution to a problem that you have. We also manage digital media campaigns. So when you see an ad on Facebook, or you're doing a search in Google, or you're browsing the web, there's a pretty good chance that you've encountered one of our clients, or you've seen an ad from one of our clients. And we also provide web design and development for a number of businesses locally as well. So anything from building your standard brochure website to building an e-commerce platform, typically on Shopify or potentially on WooCommerce. I've been in the space for 17 years now, which seems like forever. But yeah, so when I started, there was no such thing as Facebook, no Twitter. Google was the main platform from there. So with regards to social, what we're going to go through today is it's going to be kind of a mix. So it's not going to be explaining what each of the networks are. We're really kind of just going to go an overview on what you can do overall for social, and then how you can apply it to each of the networks. They have their kind of their own place and their own for every business. What we'll go through is, what's important, and we'll do some exercises from there, and we're going to make our way through and do a couple of exercises and go through each one. So if you are doing social, some of these things may not be new. If you haven't did social, some of these things could be new. So trying to tailor this workshop, a little bit of training for everyone, whether you're starting or whether you're in the process and maybe looking to make some changes and updates. So from a social media perspective, right now, I think, especially in the COVID world, everyone is spending more and more time on their digital devices. So whether it's an iPad, laptop, or smartphone, so it's important that you have a presence in social media. And for you, there's some business goals that go with that. So it's the brand health, and that's just basically what our customers saying about you. So if you're a new business, that could be future customers. If you're an existing business, it's what your existing customers are saying about you. It also provides you with the ability to listen to your customers and to provide potential innovation to drive future products and services. I think one of the big terms, especially in this space, that many of you have probably heard, is the term pivot. I think in the last close to a year now, many businesses have had to make a decision or made a pivot in terms of the products or services that they offer for clients. And with that is where the value of social media can certainly be super helpful to find out what is it that people want, and then how can I provide that product or service to them. And then more important, I think, even now, is the customer experience. And in many cases, in the past, people would call, they may call you if they have an issue with your business, or they're looking for a way to, get something from your business. Those lines of communication are changing now, and with the clients that we have, for example, and I'm sure that many of you have also experienced yourself, where you do this yourself, is that if you have an issue or there's something that you want to get in contact with the business, calling them may be one of the last things that you do. One of the first things that you may do today is to connect with them or send them a message through Facebook or through Instagram or through Twitter from there. So you need to make sure that you've got that customer experience to be top notch. And then also, with social, there's also the marketing optimization itself. So it's the, you know, what's in your marketing plan, and then from what you're doing from a marketing perspective, is it working? So it's very important that you kind of look at that, and how do you add that to your budget? And obviously, with any channel that you will invest in for your marketing, it's what kind of revenue can I generate with this platform, with these tools, and what does that look like for your organization and for your company? So if you were here for the last presentation, these next couple of slides, you may have seen them, but I think with the increasing number of people who wasn't here for the first one, just a couple of considerations, whether you're existing, you're looking at making a change to your social media, or you're looking at kind of, starting social media for your business, or you have a new business. So before you move forward, the thing you may want to consider from a self-assessment is to think about, how much time are you currently spending on marketing, and what experience does your staff have? So how many hours a day are you available to actually spend on marketing? Do you have someone else spending on marketing? Are you a solopreneur, or you wear many hats in your business? How much time does it go there? How do you measure success? And then I think one of the things that's super important for any investment that you make in the world right now is your website up to speed. So before you continue to make an investment in social, or you make a big investment, or you're starting up an investment in social media, one of the most important things that you'll probably want to look into and investigate right now is your website. Right, you're going to use social media, and you're going to use that as a driver to send more traffic to your website. So you want to make sure that with all the time and energy that you're going to spend to send, to invest in social and send people to your website, that your website is up to speed. So things to consider right then is, when was your website last updated? If it's been 5 or 10 years, and maybe it's better to invest a little bit of energy, or a lot of energy, into updating your website to make sure that people can, find your site, they can navigate your website, they can easily connect with you and contact you through you. So, if you're going to have your social media presence there, people can connect with you on social, they can call you, they can email you. As I mentioned, it's also important to make sure that your website is mobile friendly. And then with any marketing initiative, at least from our perspective, that we always recommend is that you have at least Google Analytics installed on your website, because of all the work that you're going to do. You want to have at least some indication of, am I driving traffic to my website? And if I am, where is that traffic coming from, and what platforms are they coming from? Another consideration that you'll have is, what assets are available to you. So, do you have a writer available, or are you going to do the writing? What about photography? So are you going to, are you going to use stock photos? Are you going to use photos that you've taken? Are you going to hire a professional to take photos for you? And very similar with video. Again, are you going to use stock video? Are you going to create the videos yourself? Or will you hire a professional to do the videos for you? Each of them all have their pros and cons. So things that you may want to consider is make sure that you're going to outline the roles and responsibilities. So again, what resources and skill sets do you have in-house? So whether you have a team of 2, 10, 15, or 100, what skill sets do you have? And then what additional skill sets do you need? So let's go back to the, the written, the photography, and the video skills. If those are skills that you need to add, who does that? Who's going to set the strategy and the process? So that would either be yourself, or members of your leadership team, to kind of set the strategy and what that's going to look like. Potentially working with a consultant as well, who has the experience, who work with other people, to know what it is that you would look at from a strategic perspective. Who's going to be responsible for measurement? Again, any investment that you're going to make in your business, You want to make sure that you can measure it to know if it's going to be successful, or if you need to optimize it, or if you need to reinvest or invest more time and energy into that. And secondly, there's also the team education perspective. So does your team require education and training? And if so, then how can they get that training? One of the good things with the world today is that there are certainly no shortages of opportunities to get education, whether it's online courses or reading blogs, spending time on webinars, or even going to YouTube. There's a lot of opportunity out there to go and to get educated and trained on the different topics or what it is that you will invest in. The other thing when it comes to social as well, that's super important depending on the size of your organization, is that not only to think about social as a marketing tool, is there anyone else in the company that you need to connect with? We talked about customer service, and within that, do you have someone that's on the team that's responsible for customer service? And then, they should certainly be involved. What is your plan? How do they respond? I think when we look at recruitment, for example, if there's someone with regards to human resources on your team, how can you use social media as a platform to be able to recruit good talent to bring into your organization? So I think as you go through this, if you haven't already, these are just some of the questions that you may want to consider as you make some of the changes to your social media strategy, or as you begin to invest in your social media strategy. And again, I think it's very important for us. One of the things that we always talk about in the beginning when we meet with any new client is that we talk about measurement. You want to know if the investment that you're going to make, whether it's a financial investment or a time investment, if it's working. So things you might want to have a look at, what will be your KPI or your key performance indicators? So will it be, an increasing number of leads for your business if you're providing a service? Is it going to be the number of sales that are coming in each month? And what does that look like, and how do you track that? Again, to go back to the website perspective, is the traffic that's coming to your site, is that going up and going down? And depending on your business and time of year, that could change. And to go back to the Google Analytics, again, having that installed, but then being able to use that to the best of your ability as well. So it's one thing to have it installed, but also being able to set up goals for your business. So again, whether that's sales oriented, so new leads for your business, or whether that's product oriented, so new sales for your business. And there's opportunities within that to create some reports and dashboards so you can get a very top level very quickly and learn how people are finding you, what pages are visiting, and any adjustments that you may need to make on your website. And also demographics, which we'll get into with one of the exercises very shortly. Lastly, from a measurement perspective, if you are going to invest in your website, digital marketing, and social media, one of the things that you will want to kind of maybe take off your list, if you haven't already, is to install pixels. So a number of the social media networks like Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, they all have pixels. And just a short description of that is what that allows you to be able to do at some point in the future. And I'm sure this has happened to everyone, is that if you go and visit a website and then you go to make a purchase, or you're to make a sale, but you didn't complete that sale, you'll notice is that the website that you've been to, they will kind of chase you around for 14 days or potentially 28 days, and they'll provide you with an offer. So you'll kind of see them everywhere. And the reason why they can do that is because they've installed these pixels on their website, and because you've visited them, then they're able to actually send you an ad back. So that's a very important thing if that's something that you want to invest in as you have a little bit more time and money to do that. So to jump into let's kind of get ready for one of our first exercises today, to break me talking for 2 hours up a little bit. I think what's super important, if you haven't already, is to define, who your ideal customer is. So if you haven't defined that, basically, before you go into social or make a plan, you would probably want to take the time to create a consumer profile. So I'm sure if any of you have went through some presentations, you may have already done this, and if so, great. Maybe it's a good time to revisit it. But basically, what we want to do is for you to create an avatar or a profile of someone who you think would be a really good fit, or who your ideal customer would be for your business. And what we're looking for there would be their, their demographics, their online behavior, education, personal history, motivations, and concerns. So what I'm going to take, if everyone has got the time right now, it'll probably take maybe 5 or 10 minutes. And if you haven't, we'll just kind of go through, and maybe you can answer some of these questions, jot them down on a paper, write them down on your phone or your notebook, and just kind of think about these number of questions. There's a ton of other questions that you can ask for your persona, but what I'll do is I'll take some questions if anybody has some. And I'd like to maybe hear from 2 or 3 people if anybody wants to raise their hand once we go through this, to think about, again, who your business is, who your ideal customer is, and the problem you can solve. So um, I'll go through the questions and what you can think about, and then we can take some time. I'll leave a couple of minutes for some questions and answers if everybody wants to. So um, what you want to think about when you're creating your ideal customer is, what is their current challenge? What is the problem that your business solves? Right. So if I'm someone that has a roofing business, then the problem that I solve is that someone's got either shingles that are, really old and needs to be replaced, or I've got a leak in my roof. Right. So my ideal customer, so the challenge that they have is, and the problem you can solve is, it's an easy one. Where do they get their information? So in today's world, where are people getting their information? Are they getting their information from social networks, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or are they getting their information from YouTube? Are they getting their information from Google, Bing? Where do they hang out? What social channels? Again, what platforms do they spend time on? So think about, where you spend time. Think about where your customers may spend time. What brands do they like? So if you know who if you can think about who your ideal customer is, what would be some brands that they would probably also go and like, and what is it about those brands that they would like? And is there anything that, you're a complement to those brands, or there are some of the values that those brands have that you have as well? And then I also want you to think about what their day looks like. And what I mean by that is, if it's let's say, for example, if it's an educator, then their day is obviously going to be quite busy from potentially 8 a.m. until, 3 to 4 p.m. So trying to connect with an educator between 8 a.m. and 3 p.m. on social media may not be the best use of your time and energy. So, I want you to think about that, because as we get a little bit further down throughout the presentation, it's going to be kind of like the time of day that you post. So I'm just going to stop here for a couple of minutes, if anyone wants to take the time. And if there's anybody wants to kind of even run through this exercise, we can kind of go through it, definitely to walk through it, or they want to share what they've done. They can go from there. So it looks like Sharon's raised her hand. So maybe Sharon, if you want to, if that means you want to kind of jump in, then by all means, kind of join the screen, unmute yourself, and ask any questions.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, good. And can you see me?
No.
Can you see me? No? Let me see. Start my video.
No.
See if that works. You are sending your video.
There, now we can see it.
We can see you now.
Okay. I am always interested in somebody that can help me identify how to meet my clientele. I'm a meditation instructor, so Siva Meditation is my business. And I jotted down a few of the notes that you had there about the avatar profile and stuff, and who would be my target. A person interested in self-care, person who is seeking to be calmer, peaceful, and have a peaceful life. And I guess the target audience would be the, yoga, nutrition, somebody in Ayurveda, holistic healing, self-help, I guess.
And right now, I guess, is within that, like, is that your existing customer, or is that your ideal customer?
Well, I just started to, I guess I don't really know how to answer that, because I can't really narrow it down, because there's nobody who couldn't possibly be a customer or a client, right?
This is true. No, exactly. So I think with that perspective, like, is there more commonalities? Like, is there more commonalities in terms of like who your customers are? One of the biggest sayings of marketing is that everyone is not your customer. So is there a niche? Is there a certain space, a certain spot where somebody would be able to, like, this is where I could focus some time and energy?
Yeah, I guess it's the health vibe, the yoga centers and people who are invested in healthy, holistic lifestyles.
Okay. And I'll just kind of bounce this out there a little bit as well. Have you ever looked at, even fellow entrepreneurs as well who would be potential customers? I just kind of think like a lot of people that I know, like that I know in the entrepreneur space, really typically most of the time, there's a high stress level that comes along with it, always looking for self-improvement, and, to be a little bit more disciplined. So meditation is often one of the things that they may seek out.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good point.
Actually, if I can add something in, Sheldon, we had Alison Butler from Alison Butler Consulting who did a workshop for us back at the beginning of January, and she does just that. She helps entrepreneurs with wellness, and she'd be the perfect type of person for Sharon to team up with and to really extend your network through her as well.
Thank you.
Okay, so if that's okay with you, Sharon, I'm gonna kind of move on. I think Carol, you had raised your hand as well.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, hi Sheldon. I've done this exercise several times, and I struggle because I'm a B2B. I'm not a consumer. Like I don't sell to consumers, and I've tried to profile the economic buyers within the organizations, and I can't do that either. So I struggle.
Okay.
Like there doesn't seem to be, some are business owners, some are administrative. They're just going out getting the quotes. Some are decision makers. Some are, I try to profile my network, but I struggle with this one, I got to say.
Do you mind sharing your business type? I might be able to see if
Yeah,
I can
I'm Spicer
lend a hand there.
Facilitation and Learning. We've connected on LinkedIn a couple times. So I offer
We have.
facilitation services. So I'm usually with Navigate. I'm usually in your role today.
Okay.
That type of thing, or I do strategic planning with clients. I know typically who many of my client markets are, not for profits, small businesses, that type of thing. But to actually profile who I would be targeting is pretty hard in my head anyway.
Yeah, no, I'm as a B2B owner, kind of always had the same little bit of a struggle at the same point. So I know, like, we're redoing this exercise for ourselves internally with our company at the moment. And, with us, what we've done is we've looked at, say, our client base probably over the last like 2 or 3 years to kind of get a sense of like who is it that we like to work with, who is it that really hasn't worked out quite well in some cases, and again try to find like is there a lot of commonalities or groups. I think if you kind of map it out with a number of clients that could have some common traits, you may often find something that comes together. Typically, what I would potentially look at is also like look at who the end user is versus say like who the decision maker is. So I find there's almost like two routes. So you kind of have like the top down piece, which is the owner of a business or someone in a decision making role identifies a problem that they have, and then they go out and they kind of seek a solution to the problem, right? Like, so like any of us here, that's kind of what we want to be able to do. So that's kind of coming from the top down, and so who that would be, and I think you kind of mentioned that you've identified that. That would be like your owners, your C-suite managers, department heads, etc. Then the second piece of that is also the end user. So like in our business, for example, my staff will come to me and say, hey, like, we'd like to have this because this would help improve our business in this way. So that's the end. So they're the end user who like they're doing a lot of the day-to-day work and they're like, okay, well, can we have this? Can we use this? So I don't know if that's helpful, but like just like thinking about like who, so what would be, if you think about maybe, what are some of the so you mentioned strategic planning. So, again, who would that be? Or is there a complement, like in terms of like, is there, the associations, for example, there's so many associations that are around. You mentioned the nonprofits. So is there something that's common within that? And think about the problem that you want to solve or what they have. And then I think as we even go through this, there might be some things in there you can kind of bring up. And I would look at that and then think about like seasonality. Is there anything that comes up? Obviously we get towards Q3, Q4 of every year, people begin to think about the future year. So is there anything that could be done then in terms of like planning, right? And when the budgets come out. So like,
Yeah,
those are
I
things
think
as
my
well.
biggest challenge is I have a good sense of the organizations. I don't have a good sense of who would be following my social media and what they need to hear from me. The individuals within those organizations. Like I'm running through this participant list. Many of the people on this list I've connected with, either I've done work for or partnered with, or they're my clients, a lot of them on this list. But they're also unique. Their organizations have a common theme, but the actual individuals have a common theme. You don't have that common theme. So I just want to make that comment. I just think from a B2B standpoint, I've done this several times and I find this a challenge. So I just want to throw that out.
No, and maybe you pick something. If you kind of think about from a niche perspective, like you pick a topic, and then from there, like you begin to attract people because you kind of stay on this topic, on one topic, and you're known for a specific topic. So because you're sharing the knowledge in that one space, you actually begin to attract people. But one thing I'd probably, if you haven't done this already as well, is to maybe even just do a couple, either like a couple of quick surveys or ask a couple of people, like just what are some of the things that, what are some of the common problems that they have today. And the other thing that I use sometimes as well is that I'll go and find maybe other people that are in my space, but maybe they serve either a different niche. And then like, how are they addressing things? So one area that I often look at is like the fitness industry, for example, because people in the fitness industry, like there's a couple of pain points that they are challenges that people have. And they typically, I'm like, okay, well, like, what is it that they're doing that's working for their business? And then I'll think about how I can actually kind of like, okay, but like, how could I actually use that for my business? Like, is there a certain way that they're approaching a challenge to attract people? And I'm like, okay, but like, how would, like, so if I'm not the fitness business, but we're running the marketing business, like how could I create like a similar situation or a similar kind of post, but it's tailored more for business as opposed to tailored more for fitness, and kind of begin to go from there. I think one thing that you did really well, though, Carol, though, is that I know you spend a lot of time on LinkedIn because I see you there quite a bit, and I know we're going back and forth. So it's definitely the place to continue. Is to go there. As an outside piece, I'll also give you another suggestion as well. Is to on LinkedIn, I would probably begin using the articles that are available, so you can go and publish the articles.
Okay.
So you begin to share your thought leadership in that space and create. So you're creating the need and the desire. So.
Okay. Thank you.
I think there's someone else who raised their hand as well. Christopher.
Hey, how you doing, Sheldon?
Oh, good.
I guess my challenge is that with Cranky Goat Entertainment, we're primarily a content creation company. So we produce things for broadcasters, documentaries. CBC is a big client of ours, and when we're not doing that, I'm out looking for maybe a little bit of corporate work, but I don't want to invite a spectacular amount because then it'll cramp the broadcast work that we're doing. So my primary audience really are broadcasters, and our social media presence is more about kind of legitimizing who we are and showing people this is the kind of stuff that we're doing.
I lost you there.
The customer, I find my customer primarily are the broadcasters like CBC Television. So we're having the meetings anyways. And so it's kind of like more of a self-promotional issue on social media, sort of like, here's what we're doing, here's things are happening, that kind of thing. So that's the struggle I have. It's like, if I invite too many other clients corporate-wise, then it's going to get into a problem with the material that we're supposed to be delivering to a broadcast corporation, for example, a broadcaster. So I'm kind of struggling with what my social media presence should be, because it's kind of almost like a we're real, we're legit, and this is the stuff we're doing, as opposed to I'm out looking for new clients. You know what I'm saying?
No, I do, and I think like the way when I keep hearing, I think my thought would be that you would almost begin to treat yourself like the media company. You know, so you'd almost
Yeah,
treat yourself
yeah.
like a CBC or a VOCM, and your goal would be to attract a larger and larger audience. A secondary goal potentially might be, you know, as you do that, you're going to maybe bring in people that also do what you do, but they do it in another part of the world. So same as I speak with, you know, I've got wouldn't call them like friends, but I've got people in a working capacity that I talk to in Denmark, the UK, Australia, like all over the world. We don't really have an impact on each other's business, but we're also there to help support and lift each other up. And who knows, like when an opportunity comes up. So that would kind of be, you know, that might be the opportunities to kind of build up your brand as you know, a media
That's exactly what it is. Yeah, building the brand. Yeah, building the brand to maybe seek or find co-producers or broadcasters who might decide to take us on. Yeah, that's actually that's quite insightful what you just said. It's more a brand building exercise than a lead generating exercise for us.
Yeah, and it's funny. There's going to be a slide coming up, and it's really about those two objectives for when it comes to social. Like, is the objective to generate the business itself, or is the goal to generate the actual brand and create the brand awareness? And typically, it's almost like full circle. So it's like as you do one, the other one happens kind of at the same time. So that's, you know, but my thought, just based on what you just said there, would be to think about, you know, approaching, especially what you do, like with video. Like video is so strong right now, that, you know, I think there would be a lot of people out there who would, you know, be watching it, and you'll find an audience, right? And the audience will continue to grow. So as you produce more things, and you work with more people, every time you produce something, it's going to be exposed to even more and more people for that ability to be able to share, and then it's the snowball effect, and it continues to grow and grow and grow.
Yeah, thank you.
Is there anyone else that has a question, or would anyone that's kind of went through this, answer these questions now over the last 10 minutes or so, that want to raise their hand and maybe share another question? If not, then we can get ready and we can continue to move on. Don't see any more hands raised. So if there is, by all means, just kind of raise your hand there, and then we'll kind of go from there. So once you've got your business, you know, your ideal customer, the next thing is to define your business objectives, right? So every brand on social is there for one reason at some point, and that is to eventually get more business. And typically there's kind of two ways there. And as kind of just mentioned to Christopher, this is the slide that I was mentioning there. Your business objective when it comes to social is going to be one of these two, and typically as you do one, the other continues to feed the other. So one is to build brand awareness, and that is, you know, again, as you build more followers and you build a bigger community, your brand itself is increasing as well. And on the flip side, you know, as you do that, the other objective that you may have, where maybe you're not building the big brand in the beginning, is that you want to generate more leads and sales, which I suspect, show of hands, is probably one of the things that most of you want to do right now, is to, you know, it's like, how do I generate more leads and sales from social? I'm not going to go through all this, but typically, you know, when you think about what you want from social, there's the customer service element. You know, if you've got a lot of customers right now, how do you address that? How do you answer questions? I think of companies like, you know, whether it's the Amazons, the, you know, the airlines, Walmarts, and those companies of the world would have, or the Bells and the telemark and the, you know, the communications companies, where customer service is probably a very important element of their social media. The brand awareness piece, obviously, I think is super important. And in some cases, I think it's also humanizing your brand. You know, so it's one thing that we're seeing in social right now is that we're seeing more and more of brands that kind of need to have a stance or take a stance on certain issues and topics. So we're seeing that come to be a little bit stronger probably in the last couple of years. Generating leads, as I mentioned, promoting content. So Christopher, as you kind of mentioned, promoting content would probably be one of the keys for you. Learning about your customers as well. It's sometimes depending on how big your community is or the network that you're in, you can learn about what your customers want and what they do. So how do we do this? So basically, there's a couple of things when we kind of look at the traditional funnel, and that is like when we want to first we want to attract visitors, so creating an audience, and then as we kind of get those audience and we kind of get build the audience up, the next piece it's well, it's fun to have a large audience. At some point, we do need to convert them into either a lead or a sale. And then as we do that, we want to make sure that we're also going to be closing those customers and finalizing those sales, and getting those leads to become clients. And with that, we're building our audience, and then we're also using social as a means to even drive traffic, as an inbound way to drive traffic to your website, and then turning that traffic into leads, and then nurturing those leads. And once those leads are nurtured, the other important piece that's probably should add as a future bullet point is the repeat business. Right. So what's the value of, once you've did all the work to attract a visitor, convert them into a lead and then close them as a customer? What's more important at that point is also to make sure that they, if they can, is to become a repeat customer. So planning your strategy. If you haven't done this, or you're starting out, or maybe you're, you've started in a couple of networks like Facebook and Instagram, one of the things that we often recommend is that even if you have no intention of using a particular network, and in today's space there's so many social networks that exist, one of the things that we recommend, the first thing that you do and would be to make sure that you secure your identity. So as a new platform comes out, or if there's an existing platform that you don't currently have an account, highly encourage that you go and you create that account, even if you have no intention to use it, so that way no one else can take it as well. And at some point, if you do decide to use it, at least then now you've actually got your identity there. One of the best practices there is to try to maintain the same name that you have, the username or the account name, to be the same across all platforms, so people can easily find you across each one. And then in some cases, depending on the platform that you're using, so if you're using Facebook, then you want to make sure that you've got like a Facebook business page. And if you're using Instagram, you also want to make sure that you've got that set up as a business profile and not a personal profile. LinkedIn, very similar. You will have your personal profiles, and there's also company pages. When it comes to social, it's also very important that you get your profile photos to kind of be the same, so people can really identify that this is you and your business, and not a different business. And in some cases, there are businesses that have the same names, but because of the locations, they serve different areas. Things you want to consider is that when you're optimizing your profiles, keep the character short, the profile photos, again, to be a logo. Bios are important as well. One thing that's sometimes tricky to do is that each platform will have a different limit in terms of who it is that they can, how much information you can share. So you want to be pretty consistent, and make sure that you've got certain keywords that are in your bio so people can find you when they do a search. So I talked about SEO earlier for websites, but SEO also exists for social media. So when people do a search in a Facebook account or an Instagram account or a Twitter account, if you've got your bio set up, then people can actually find you within that as well. And most accounts have an option for you to have a link in the bio as well. So again, pointing people back to your website, which you would probably want to have that updated. Depending on where you are right now, as you're planning your strategy, one of the things that we'd highly recommend would be to be looking at your competitors in and out of market. And I say in and out of market because in some cases, like, you will have your local competitors, but there may also be someone who's doing what you're doing in a different market. So whether that could be, Toronto, Vancouver, Los Angeles, London, Paris, or wherever, I often find, or what I often recommend, is to find maybe someone who's doing what you do in either a different market, and also maybe it's someone, so let's say if you're a coffee company, for example, and maybe you've got one or two shops, then maybe what you're going to want to look at there is, well, what does Starbucks do all the time, or what does Tim Hortons do all the time, or Second Cup, or some of the other brands, and just kind of get a sense of the companies that potentially have 15 or 20 people working on their account for social. What are some of the ideas that they're doing? How often are these companies posting? Again, what time of day are they posting? When we look at that customer profile, the persona that we talked about a little bit, and we think about the day in the life of who your ideal customer is. So, you think about that, and when would you post? So, if we go back with the coffee shop example, for example, then you may want to have a post that goes out early in the morning at 7 a.m. or at 6:30 or 7:30. What is it they're posting? Are they posting videos, images, just text? And then look at one thing that's, I think, super valuable if you have the time to do it, is to take one of your competitors, look through their account and see what they're posting, but more importantly, see how many of the following metrics are happening for them. So, are there people engaging? Are there questions that are being asked? What are those questions? So then you may be able to use that for some of the research for your social media posts. You may realize that a competitor's customer may have a certain problem, and you can solve that problem as well. So look there and see what they're doing, and see what's working and what's not working. So then once you've kind of looked at the competitors, one of the big decisions that is getting trickier and trickier every single year is that there are social networks that are popping up pretty consistently. If we look at, say, the last 5 or 6 years, we've got Snapchat. We've got basically what I call typically like our big, large networks. So our Facebooks, our Twitters, our LinkedIns, our Instagrams. That's been around for quite a while. And then you kind of have some other social networks that are quite popular that maybe not everyone is on. And then we look at, so which one should you choose? So if you look here, for example, we look at what are the most popular social networks, and Facebook obviously is number one. And that creates its own challenges. So while it's the number one social network, it also means it's the place where most people spend their time and energy. And then you look at, one thing that's surprising is that TikTok has jumped up in that list, right? That TikTok's been around for only a couple of years now, and so you look there, it's in that top 10, and there's a few networks there that maybe we're not using. One thing that's very interesting is that if you look at the last one there, so the number of active users, which is Twitter at 326 million active users. It's not a big network, but it's a very active network and loyal network. So when you go to make the decision on which network it is that you want to be in, you need to think about how much time, to go back to those audits and roles and responsibilities. How much time do you have in your day to be active on a network? So you need to be careful in terms of what you pick. There's a couple of schools of thought in terms of how you choose your networks. One school of thought is you are on every network. So you just basically, what it is that you want to post, you share that across everywhere. There's definitely pros and cons to that. Another school of thought is that you have a presence everywhere, but you focus your attention maybe in one or two platforms, depending on what amount of time that you have to spend in your business. So in most cases, that will more than likely be Facebook and potentially Instagram. So some of the considerations for you now, in terms of just want to kind of get it out there, is that if based on the persona that you had just created or the exercise that you had done, if you want to think about the network that you want to choose, here is just some food for thought, and to kind of see if the persona that you had created or the avatar that you had created, which of these social media networks and demographics both align for you. So if you look at Facebook, for example, you can see from a gender perspective, it's fairly equal. From an age perspective, you can see that the bulk ranges between 18 to 64, which is quite a wide range. But that 18 to 49 being the largest population. Location-wise, you can kind of see here, You look at income as well and education, you can kind of see the difference. And then basically it's the same trend. And these all come from Sprout Social, who's done this research. And you can kind of get a sense. If you look at Instagram, for example, it's a little, like Facebook, skewed a little more female, skewed also a bit more urban and suburban. And one thing that's a bit different though, if you look at the age ranges, right? So Instagram is skewed a little younger than Facebook. So depending on who that avatar is, that may be a part of your decision that you choose in terms of which network that you're going to join. If you're looking at Twitter, for example, Twitter is a bit even across the board with regards to age ranges and everything else. And then LinkedIn, also very similar. But if you look at the age ranges, it's very different. 30 to 49 is kind of the peak age range there. So if you're thinking about your customers and how much that they're where they're spending their time and energy, this slide here will kind of give you a sense of where they're spending that time and energy. These slides, by the way, we will be sending out a copy, so you'll be able to look at this a little bit down the road. Some other secondary probably markets that you want to consider is Pinterest, YouTube, and Snapchat. Again, some more of the demographics that go along with that. But then now, once you've kind of decided who your avatar is going to be and you decide the networks that you're in, you need to have a content strategy. So basically, what we'd probably recommend, or what you would probably want to look at, is the frequency of your post, right? So it can be quite daunting to do social on a regular basis. So depending on the amount of time that you have, you need to think about what's going to be the frequency. So if that means that you want to post once a week, post once a week. There's nothing that states that you need to post 5 or 6 or 7 days a week. If you've got one post, start with one post, and then you can move yourself up to one. You can move yourself up to 2, 3 from there. What we typically recommend is that if you do one post or two posts, is that each network kind of has its own tweaks, or they have some limitations that you can add in. So as opposed to posting the same thing across each network, is to try to use each network to the best of your ability, if that's the approach you're going to take, and tweak each one. So Twitter, the message could be a little shorter. Facebook, the message could be a little longer. Instagram, you probably include more hashtags with your posts, so tailor each one. And what we'd recommend is to make a 4-week plan, typically a rolling 4-week plan. And this is an example of a local St. John's company that we use called Aorca. And it kind of gives you a sense of what your calendar can look like. And if you do this in advance, it feels good knowing that you've got your calendar in place, you've got social media posts that are going to go out. So then you can kind of tend to the other parts of your business, knowing that the social media is taken care of. So you want to look at the calendar for the month ahead and what events are coming up, what promos you may have, what content that you want to curate. And if you're doing more promotion based, or you're looking for engagement, what's some of the calls to action that you may want to have in place, and how you're going to create that engagement. Thinking ahead, again, to go back to the written piece, the photography piece, and the video piece. What is it that you need to build, and what tools are you going to use to create that? And look at trends, right? So if we look at, for example, like this week, everyone's talking about the Super Bowl that's coming up. So there's a little bit of a light shelf life there that you can kind of use that. So look at what some of those trends are. I think one of the biggest ones was maybe about a week and a half or 2 weeks ago. It was really difficult not to go online and see Bernie Sanders, the memes of him and his chair basically going to be at different local businesses or in different places. I think for the most part, they're pretty much everywhere, right? Like that was everywhere, and that's a trend. A lot of people jumped on the trend, and some people did very well with that. So, looking at that and jumping in on it quite early. So once you kind of have, you're thinking about building your plan, you want to think about, what content do you want to create and share. So for the most part, you really don't want to be posting on social so that every single post that you have is a sales driven post, right? Every post is on a sale or a promo and a sale and a promo. If you do that, your audience is not going to stay around very long. You want to build the community, right? So you want to make sure that you're thinking about that. It's good to have promotional posts sprinkled into your content. but it's not something that you want to do with every single post. So the key for generating good social posts is to have a variety of content that aligns with your goals for generating leads, building a community, and driving sales. So with that, there's a couple of different ways to generate leads and sales. So there's the direct way in terms of like just by sharing content that goes back to your website, sharing things for a landing page for people to go and get an offer. This is really more for the B2B and the service side. And that would be, guides, checklists, white papers, those kind of things. You can have people go back. And then the other piece is to look at it indirectly, and that is just, again, building the community on social, where people will kind of, over time, maybe go and become a lead. And that's sharing your photos, photo albums, blog posts, videos, third-party content, and event invites if you, have virtual events more so today than pre-COVID. A balance is always good as well, to make sure that you kind of break it up. So it's not necessarily always photos that you use. You could break it up with some photos, or you could break it up with some videos or just text, and kind of test around and see which one works best for you. When it comes to post types, so this is kind of a different approach now in terms of, as I say, some of the earlier times that I would have been kind of creating a workshop or going through this. And in the past, we kind of do like, here's what each network is, here's what you would post to each network. What's kind of happened over the last 2 or 3 years is that what we've seen is that there is the social networks, and most of the social networks now have a lot of the same features. So as you're doing your social media, you're not thinking about what it is that you're going to post to Twitter or Snapchat or, LinkedIn or Facebook. You need to think about the kind of the post types, and then secondary within that, once you choose your post type, what it is, how are you going to create that content? So in today's social media landscape, you've got the news feed. So if you're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, that's basically your wall and everyone else's friends and posts. So that's your news feeds. Snapchat doesn't have that. Then there's stories as well. So this is another place where people are posting content. This is, again, that short 15-second, mostly videos, some text. People are sharing a story, and most platforms have this today. I think the last I've seen, Pinterest even has stories that are coming out now as well. Each network typically has a way where you can direct message people. This is the direct messaging piece is super important if you're thinking about the customer service element, because that's where people will be messaging you. So the more networks that you join, the more opportunities that you're going to have people sending you messages across platforms. So you need to have like a process in place in terms of how you're going to do that. In today's space, there's also live streaming. So whether that's Facebook Live, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, so people going live and doing, I think events have been quite popular, Q&As. And then also like e-commerce features. So these are kind of like the things that you need to think about today. Is these are the different types of post that you're going to have, but then also what is it that you're going to make a post for each one. So typically within that, there's kind of 3 types of content that we would typically recommend. One is what we call like evergreen content. So this is your thinking about your business or your industry. This is the content that you would create that would have value for you, whether it's someone who's reading the post today, 2 weeks from now, 2 months from now, 6 months from now, a year, or 2 years from now. So, what is that evergreen content that you can create for your business? So if you're thinking about, what is it that you want to post, begin to think about, okay, what are some evergreen pieces of content that I can create? Like, what are some checklists, stats, tips? What are some of those pain points or challenges if we think about the persona that we created earlier that we want to be able to go and solve? So that's typically what would be your evergreen content. And then you got your company content. These are typically the posts that do quite well. So this would be, again, company milestones, employee spotlights. So it might be a work anniversary, a birthday, could be new employees who are joining the team. So those are things that you may want to highlight. Community support as well. How are you being a part of the overall, whether it's the business community or the community in general, and how are you supporting in that? New partnerships or collaborations. Collaborations are quite huge when it comes to social media now, and and people working again with other companies or other people. So that's your company content. And then you've got your curated content. So not every post that you have, it's also a post that has to come from you. So what I mean by that is that if you look at your industry, there may be things that are happening in your industry that someone else has shared, and that's important information. So sharing their content to your page is still highly valuable. So what could some of that content be? I suspect within each of your industries, there's content that's being shared or that someone else has that would be highly valuable for your members, and it's not coming from you. So it just goes to show that that's other pieces there. Again, looking at the trends, we talked about the Bernie Sanders trend earlier. Partner content. If you were here for the last session, one of the things that we talked about were collaborations, and this would be kind of like a follow up to that. So if you do have someone that you can partner with, another company that's a complement to your business, then that would be someone that you would look at, sharing their content, and then ideally they would also share yours. One thing that's come up a lot, obviously, but last March and shortly after, government regulations. So depending on the industry that you're in, if there is a change in a government regulation or something that's changed and the tax season's coming up, for example, sharing that information from the source itself. So if it's something from Revenue Canada or the Government of Canada or a provincial body, sharing it on your page from them, also highly valuable to your audience. So I want to take a pause again and for our second exercise, and that is if you have it, we'll take a few minutes and think about 2 evergreen social posts that you could create for your business, 2 company posts that you could create for your business, and 2 curated posts that you can create for your business. So I'll pause here, give you guys a few minutes to think about that, and if anybody wants to jump on like before and share some of their thoughts, opinions, or ask for help, then by all means raise your hand and we can kind of go through that as well. Is there anyone who would like to kind of jump in terms of share their business and think about what some of their evergreen post or content could be?
If anyone's having any trouble unmuting, you can put a message in chat and I can read it out for you.
I guess I could share. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
So I'm Kim, and I just started doing a small jewelry business, and I guess for an evergreen content would be if I had someone that shared a picture of themselves wearing my jewelry and then just posting it on my page and get like a little small testimonial to be like, oh, they love my product, and have like a quote unquote, I don't know, whatever they would say, like, I love this, great quality, whatever they might say.
Exactly. Like that's a really good example of something you could do. The other thing you could do as well is, so with your pieces, like, do you create the pieces?
Yeah, I do. They're all hand.
So one of the things that I think will be really good evergreen post, if you have a certain piece, an evergreen post for that particular piece might be for you is sharing the inspiration from that piece. And that could be something that you could turn into a blog post. You could share the piece and then write that piece itself with a couple of photos. And then lastly, I think what would be super impactful from an evergreen perspective would be you in front of a camera describing the piece and the inspiration and where it came from. And that's an evergreen piece that's I suspect will probably be valuable again 2 days, 2 weeks, 6 months, a year down the road. And I think that would a piece that you could not only have to share one. So that's, I guess, when it comes to I just want to be clear, when it comes to the evergreen post, one of the good things with the evergreen post is that you can take them and you can share them multiple times. So just because you create that post today, it doesn't mean that that's the only time that you're going to share that post to your audience. Every single day as you continue down your social media journey, you're going to add new people to your account. So something that you post today, a follower of yours from 6 months from now may not see this post from today. So that's your evergreen piece of content that you would repost, or you would post again, maybe every 6 to 8 weeks. I'm going to share that same post over and over and over. So that's part of the evergreen post. Is that helpful?
Yeah, it was. Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions?
No questions in chat right now, so I think we're good to keep going. Yeah.
Good. Okay. So building your audience. Depending on where you are with your social media journey, there's a couple of things that you can start. Whether you have a page or whether you have an account or you don't have an account. So the first thing I would probably start with is your existing contacts. Select your page. I think many of us, you've got contacts in your phone, just texting your friends, family, people that you speak with on a regular basis. And as we talked about earlier, even here, sharing your social networks with your existing contacts can really help kind of at least get you off the ground, or maybe find some new people. And do that across the board for the channel that you are going to be spending the most of your time. So I would start there. The next would be, if you've got employees, ask them to do the same thing, and share the company page with them. In most cases, employees are definitely more than happy to share where they work. And then lastly, another piece is to, if you've got a list of email contacts, just send everyone a quick email, or if you have like a newsletter platform, which we'll talk about in a couple of weeks for email marketing, you could just send people a quick note and just say, hey, we're, especially if a new platform comes out, you can actually send out a quick note and just say, hey, we've just joined TikTok or Clubhouse or this new channel, and greatly appreciate it if you can follow us, and here's what we're going to be on. Obviously, adding your social networks to your offline material. I think one of the keys here that I'd often recommend, and I see this quite often, is that with regards to like brochures, business cards, reports, and those things, what I see a lot of companies do is that they will, on the brochure, they will put the company name, and then they'll just put the icon for Facebook, an icon for Instagram, or an icon for Twitter. What I would recommend there is that you actually add your handle, right? So the name that you're using, that's what you want to add to those offline materials. If it's just the icon, then you've kind of created a challenge for that particular person who wants to join your page, because they're just seeing an icon. They don't know what to look up, they don't know what to search, they don't know how to find you. So if you include your handles, then they can just go and find you directly. One thing that's changed a lot, mostly within the last year, is that QR codes have actually come back quite a bit. So depending on where you are now, you've in many places, like if you go to some of the shopping centers, what you'll see kind of like outside stores, or if you go to restaurants, you'll see a QR code on most phones today. You just basically put your camera over the QR code, and it will take you to that particular page. So a QR code is a great place to be able to go and to be able to use that for your business. And that's something where, if you've got a vehicle or you're putting a lot of brochures, it makes it very easy for someone to be able to go and connect with you quite quickly. So adding a QR code would be a really good place. Obviously, I think it's adding the social networks to your website and making it in an easy spot. So typically, if you've got the contact us page, making sure you get your social networks there. The reason why you want to do that is from the customer service perspective, again, or someone looking to do business with you, is that they may not call you, they may not want to email you, they may want to contact you directly on social media. So making sure you've got them there. Also taking the time, if you haven't, to cross post from one network to the other, because someone who follows you on Facebook, they may not be following you on Twitter, and vice versa. So on occasion, go to your Facebook page and let them know that they can follow you on Twitter, or go to your Twitter account and let them know they can follow you back to Facebook. The reason why I say that is because just because they follow you on Twitter, but they don't follow you on Facebook, if you posted to Twitter and they miss that tweet, then they may also be able to see it on Facebook, depending on that, again, how their day is looking. Your email signature is a great place. If you think about all the emails that you send over the course of the day, having the ability to share your social networks on your email signature, super important. A QR code. I don't know what QR stands for, to be honest. It's just a kind of like trying to think of like how this way to explain it, but it's kind of like all these kind of like dots and squares and circles, and it's just there. I'm sure if you do a quick lookup on Google, if you do a QR code lookup, you'll see it. I'm sure most people will recognize it. And if you are kind of curious on how to do that, just go to Google and just type QR code generator, and more than likely it will give you a place where you can go and put in the website that you want to go to, create the QR code, and you can kind of go and get it printed off from there. And then also, one thing you can also do is you can use paid media to grow your audience. So if you're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, etc., you can actually pay those channels to be able to run ads to drive more people to like your page. That one there is a tricky one. It's not necessarily one that I would encourage. If you've got a big budget, it might be something you want to do, but typically it's best to kind of try to grow your audience organically to get people to kind of come and engage with you, as opposed to just growing a high following. So some of the best practices and things to discuss: hashtags. Very kind of quickly, each network has kind of like a different way to use hashtags, and I'll just back up for a second. So a hashtag is basically, it's got the pound sign. You kind of see a couple of examples down here with the Explorer and the YYT. What it does, it provides you with, when you click on a hashtag, it provides you with a way for anyone who's looking on that hashtag to be able to connect and to be able to share information on that particular hashtag or topic. So what it's really good for is, some of the ones that you will see locally around St. John's and Newfoundland is you'll see like Explore NL for the travel industry. Laura Lee, you have a question?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, would you recommend, it's kind of, I think, weird to ask, but if you've already got posts already made, do you think it would be okay to go back and add hashtags to older posts if you weren't doing it from the beginning?
If you do it on the older ones, they're not going to show up as such. You're using the hashtags to be able to get people like immediately coming to you, especially more for Instagram than anything else. Using the hashtags are a way to, like, when you make a post, it'll show up in someone's feed, or someone is looking on those particular hashtags to join. So to go back and say repopulate older posts with hashtags is not a practice that I wouldn't recommend. But I would definitely, as you move forward, make sure that depending on the network that you're going to share, even including Facebook. Facebook didn't used to be hashtag friendly, but now they're more and more hashtag friendly. So on your future post, I would definitely want to go and make sure you're including at least one hashtag. Twitter, I would include one hashtag. Instagram, you can include one hashtag. LinkedIn, you can include one hashtag. Twitter, one. Instagram, you can do up to 30. But then within that, you need to be kind of cautious as well. Like if you pick a very popular hashtag, for example, the example here, like, being over like 1 million, if you did 10 or 11 of those, the chances of you getting kind of discovered in one of those hashtags are going to be quite slim. What you want to do is to look at looking to, depending on, again, who your avatar is and where they are, be like the smaller hashtags work better. So again, the YYT for St. John's and surrounding area, and LWX is one that's used on Twitter if you're looking at weather-related posts. NL Traffic is quite a popular one as well. And just, as you do your research, you'll probably find more hashtags that are related to your business or your industry. Does it help? Okay. Other thing, this one's mostly for Instagram, location tagging as well. So when you do a post on Instagram, one of the things that you want to think about is to tag your post. So you can either tag, like if you've got your physical location, you can tag that, and basically then if someone looks at, say, someone's coming to your place of business, then they will actually show you. You will show up there. I just missed that. I just missed that chat, so I'll come back to that one. I'll come back to that one in a second. The other thing that's really good about tagging locations is that you can tag the town or city that you're in as well. So you'll show up in posts of people who are looking in that post. The other thing that's really one good thing that's there for location tagging. So if for your place of business, if you go and you look at people who have tagged your location, you can find customers who have tagged you in your business and you may not have seen them. So you can actually go in their post and you can comment on their post and engage with them. So it's a really good place to be able to go and do that. The chat that just came up, I just missed that one. And unfortunately, when I'm in the sharing screen, I can't see the chats. What was the question?
It's one from Bridget saying, is there a list of hashtags or can you basically put anything you like?
That's a really good question. There's a lot of common hashtags. If you do Instagram, for example, it'll actually kind of give you some suggestions as you do a post. We can share some of these in the follow-up. One of the things that we've done is that we've actually created hashtag calendars for every year, for every calendar year, and that will kind of be like a list of some of the common hashtags that people use. One thing that I would probably recommend as well, depending on where you are, whether you're starting social media or you're currently doing social, again, start by looking at competitors, see what kind of hashtags they use. You might find a couple, but they're unlimited, right? There's some people create hashtags that might be for a particular situation. Other people create hashtags. If we look at the kind of like the Explore NL, and there's one for Explore Canada, and a lot of companies or communities or nonprofits, a lot of people have their own hashtags. So hashtag research is something that you probably have to take on yourself and find and see what works best for you. One thing that I would recommend is not to be too diverse. So as you begin to kind of go really diverse with your hashtags, the likelihood of you showing up in a feed for someone is pretty slim. If you keep your hashtags to your post and you kind of keep it very niche and very specific to what your post is about, you'll have a greater chance of showing up in someone else's feed or showing up in the hashtag feed. So if you're using stories, some of the things that you might want to consider will be to show behind the scenes content. So this might be something that maybe you're doing research on a new product or a new service, or you're doing something in the store, or you're showing someone how to do something. So you can do the behind the scenes content. Live events, well, pre-COVID, live events would be something that you would probably do on a regular basis. One thing that's good for stories as well, so stories being on Instagram and pretty much across every platform now, it's really good for your community to maybe even do the announcements within the stories first. So basically it's almost like being exclusive because they get the first touch point of when something is happening. So you might do it on stories today, and then maybe tomorrow you would go and post that to your feed. Interviews are good as well. So bringing people to your stories to do interviews, Q&As with staff as well. Sharing news and creating, again, cross-promoting across platforms for businesses. If you're going to be doing video, sharing tips, always good. Tutorials, super helpful to do tutorials. Live videos, what we've seen a lot in the last couple of years is that people are doing shows, Q&As, bringing guests on, and doing their own shows, which I think is very good. Going live with partners. So if you've got, this is just a couple of examples here, is if you've got partners or people who are complementary to your business, speaking about how you work together or collaborations and going live with each other. One of the good things there, what happens is that it allows you to be able to get to attract each other's audience and then hopefully kind of grow together as well. So Christopher, I know you mentioned earlier in terms of like what you could do. And I think if you were to think about hosting your own show and bringing in other people who do documentaries or do video, you could do Q&A sessions with them, right? So that would be an option that you could kind of go in and you can do. Other things you can do for videos is that depending on the content that you have, you can use explainer videos. So people, when it comes to learning about your product and service, some people may want to read everything very detailed in a social post or a blog post. Other people may really enjoy having an explainer video. So these would be 30 seconds to a minute to 2 minutes, and basically all you're going to do is explain, the problem that somebody may have, the problem that you can solve, and just kind of go through the steps. Customer stories on video are really good as well. So I think like Kim, you had mentioned for you, it might be good to have to bring somebody on to get a customer story in terms of a piece that maybe someone bought as well. Your story. So using video to talk about your journey. So many of you are business owners. So think about sharing your story. And that could be in, again, Instagram stories, Facebook stories, etc. But even just keeping it for yourself. So I think I saw an example somewhere a couple of days ago. And in terms of like vlogging and sharing video, is think about as you're going through your day as if you were to have a camera crew in front of you and what are the stories that you would share. It doesn't necessarily mean that you would kind of record and share everything to social media that you have. But let's say if you're to think about the milestones for your business and you are recording content and you look back at the progress that you've had, say over 2 years, 3 years, or 10 years, it'd be great to be able to have content kind of to piece that together at some point in the future to be able to share with people, right? If you've ever watched a documentary or a biography, there's always videos in terms of like, how people progress through their journey. So start using the video to create your own, and you don't have to share it, but just to kind of have it. I know personally for me, I've got I have 2 kids, and I create so many little stories and videos that I have that I really look forward to be able to watch 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years down the road about their life. And then similarly to my business, I also take videos of milestones or things that happen in our business and just record them. And then at some point down the road, I may want to use them for something. So it was just a good, nice little practice to kind of begin getting comfortable with video. If you're going to do video, I'll just leave this here because it'll be in the slides. So just some of the equipment that you may want to use. One thing that I would really recommend, and this is probably one of the things that I don't see businesses do a lot. Most people with social will go, they will think about their avatar, they will create a schedule, they will post the content, and the content will go out, and people will comment on it, and then they don't respond. So it's if you're going to be doing social, is equally as important as it is to create your schedule and your post and what it is that you're going to post. What's probably even more important, so whether you do this as the business owner or you do this as the business, is to make time to engage with your community. All right, so if you need to, start small, and even if you just do it personally for yourself, because your brand and your business are closely tied together from a personal branding perspective, take 15 minutes a day, go and find some new accounts or new people and explore, if it's LinkedIn or Twitter or Facebook, and find new people to engage with or engage with an existing community. This is probably one of the areas that will get you more success than creating your own content and publishing it, is spending time to go in and doing the social piece of social media marketing, right? So if you're just going to post content and not get out there and not engage and not doing anything, you may not get the results. But if you take the time to go and engage your community, this is where, if you only post once or twice a week, but you take 15 minutes a day and you engage with new people and hashtags, this is really where you'll have an opportunity to kind of grow your community. Other things you can do from a social media perspective, again, share your business posts to your personal profile, not all the time, but on occasion, there's definitely an opportunity to share your business stuff to your personal profile. The other piece that's good to do as well is if you do have staff members, talk to your staff, ask them if it's okay, if they will be willing to share a post as well and content to their feeds, right? And in some cases, that might be the community support piece, the company milestones, and some of those elements. Or if it's, you're looking for new employees, employee advocacy is a great place to be able to go and do that. So it's not a big ask, and it's not something that you have to force. But if people are proud of where they work, in many cases, they'll be more than happy to share content. The second last thing that we'll kind of go through will be running ads. So doing all the social pieces are great if you have a plan and you've got lots of time to do that. If you don't have lots of time and you still want to get an impact from social media, maybe running ads might be for you, right? So instead of taking the time to go in, maybe you're busy and you don't have time to do the engagement, you don't have time to create the social post, then what you can begin to do, or if you only want to do promos, then doing paid social might be the thing for you. And that would just be, and all that means is that instead of doing regular post, you may have a promo. And I would suspect many of you have kind of hit the boost button, which I would never do. I would kind of set it up in a different manner. But all it allows you to do is to be able to kind of get the promotions or the sales driven pieces to work for you, but you have to go and spend some money to get that done. To do this on Facebook, for example, you need to have your Facebook page. You can't advertise a personal account. You need to have a Facebook page. I want to go back to the pixel piece. So that's making sure that you've got the Facebook pixel, which will also work for Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter. Again, you want to do that so you can do the remarketing ads, which I'll talk about. Your options for Facebook, again, is think about your brand awareness, reaching people. One thing that you will notice is that as you continue to do more social media, you're not going to reach everyone for every post. It's actually getting more and more difficult to reach people in what we call organically, because there are more and more people on social, more and more people doing social. So having an offset between paid and organic is a good practice. Think about your objectives, what you want to do. Lead generation, conversions, product catalog sales. So one thing that Facebook is invested in specifically right now is that they're kind of really promoting in Instagram the option to be able for people to go and buy products without having to visit a website. So if you're selling a product, that would certainly be something that you'd want to explore. If you have a Facebook page, I think there's an option now. You can go in and you can actually add products to your own Facebook page to sell those products directly. Or you can look for people to get people to actually come and visit your store, which you can't really kind of do as much today as we could in the past. One thing that we do like about the paid social piece is that you can target your ideal customer. So if we go back to that exercise that we did towards the beginning, and you picked your ideal customer. So if you are limited on time and resource, but you do have a budget that you're willing to spend, you can take that ideal customer that you have and you can use a social network. So using Facebook here as the example, to be able to target people in a specific location, age, gender, relationship status, education, behavior, interest, and then you can basically map your ideal customer to an ad, so only your ideal customers will be exposed to the ads. That in itself, it's basically like another presentation to kind of go through the entire process to do that. But those are something that you can kind of go through the process, and that can bring back a pretty good return depending on the time and resources and energy that you have. Your ad placements will kind of look like this, and in terms of like how you're going to develop them. And then finally, you always want to be testing. So when you're running ads, doing Facebook and whatnot, you want to have a look at what's working and what's not working. So different images, ad formats, new copy, different calls to action as well. And then also looking at your website traffic and seeing, like, you know, what is all the work that you're doing for social and paid social. Is it driving website traffic? And then is that website traffic driving leads or sales to your business? So that's the bulk of the social media piece. One thing I do want to kind of add in as an added bonus for today's session is I want to just take a couple of minutes to talk about Google My Business. So this is something that each of you will have or should have set up. It's free from Google. It'll, you know, if you do a search for a product or a service, in many cases, Google will kind of show some of the businesses on a map that will show up. And just to kind of run through, one of the things that very few businesses do with Google My Business is that you can actually post, you can actually make a post on your Google My Business account. So if you have an offer or a promotion, you can actually post that to Google. So people who are Googling your business and finding you that way, if they are not finding you or they haven't seen you on social media, and you've got a coupon or a discount, then you can actually post that to your Google My Business. A post will typically last about 7 days. That's our recommendation, is to make a post every 7 days. It will stay up there, and we've seen some really good success for driving coupons and discounts and sales and promotions with Google My Business. So the other thing you might want to consider, talked a lot mostly about Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and you might want to think about Twitter. My caution on Twitter, for the most part, is that Twitter is a very fast-paced place to be spending time and energy on social, and it's if you're going to spend time to use that for your business, then that engagement piece is something that you would have to do and be very active with from there. Bridget, sorry, question here. You don't need a website for Google My Business. Yeah. So if you have a business, you can set up a Google My Business account, and people can call you and find directions to you and see your hours of operations from there. So you don't need it. It's a nice bonus to have the website, but you don't need one. But you could push people to your Facebook page on Google My Business. The other part talked about early in this presentation as well is that with social right now, there seems to be like a new social network that comes up every year, and you know, that's kind of like the shiny ball, and everyone begins to chase it. You know, a year and a half ago, it was TikTok, so everybody all of a sudden wanted to be on TikTok and jumped on TikTok. Right now, there's another social network called Clubhouse, which is basically it's like an audio social network. So you jump into calls and you listen to speakers to jump in. So that's a new one that's becoming quite popular. And then other channels will definitely kind of come in, I suspect, before the year's out as well. So my recommendation, again, is to secure the profile to any new network that comes out, but really take care of the network that you feel most comfortable with and the network that your customers feel most comfortable with as well. In many cases, that's probably going to be Facebook, and then secondary Instagram. And then from a professional perspective, I would highly encourage you to take time to invest in LinkedIn as well. LinkedIn is a really great tool to be able to network and find a lot of people in your niche who may share some of the same challenges that you have, and it's a really good place to connect with people from all over the world. Secondary, once you've got your social piece hammered down, I'd highly recommend making sure that you're running Google Ads. The one Google ad that I would recommend for any business will be to pay for your brand name. So if you're running a Google ad, at least pay for your brand name so you can always be on the top of the search result when people are looking for you. And then also, which we'll kind of get into in our next discussion, will be MailChimp and email marketing. So as great as social media can be for your business, doing email marketing, doing it effectively can be equally or better um, for the business in terms of like generating leads and revenue. So having a good email strategy in place, which we'll go through in the next session, can be super valuable for your business. So wrap up takeaways quickly is to look at your business objectives, build your audience, thinking about the balance of content that you want to have. So, if you're going to do promotions, keep it light. Try to look at building the community. Think about the different type of content that you want. The evergreen pieces, super valuable. One good thing that's good with the evergreen pieces is that if you create a blog for your website, and you do that on a regular basis, more often than not, you can use the content that you have from your blog to create several evergreen posts. And that'll kind of really help on two folds. One, having the blog on your website will allow you to attract more business to Google. And then if you pull that content and start taking that content out to create it on social, you can bring people back to your blog. So it kind of serves each other. The community content or the company content, security content. And then if you are limited on time and resources, then thinking about doing social media advertising to generate business could be a good first start to kind of go into that. So that's my social networks. I'll leave it there, and I'll leave it up for any questions. This is a lot to take in over the course, for an hour and a half. This is a ton of information to take in. And each of the points there, people can kind of you can go in much deeper. So I'll begin to take questions. And Cam, I think you have your hand raised there.
Yeah, I know you mentioned YouTube, and it seemed to have such a huge following, I guess. How do you go about making YouTube videos? Because it's mostly for I know personally I follow a lot of people that just talk about their lifestyle or makeup channels or whatever it is. So if I were as a jewelry maker, how could I do something with that?
With any business, and I think one of the things that you can do, I mentioned earlier, is to talk about your journey. So think about your a YouTube channel as your video website, right? So you can kind of create the About Us section of your website. It's a video about you, so you can kind of talk about who you are, your backgrounds, what inspires you, who inspires you. So that's kind of like the About Us piece. And then you can take each of your individual pieces that you're creating, and I suspect each of those would have a story. So, tell that story for each video. And the video doesn't have to be 10 or 15 minutes long. If it's 2 minutes long, 3 minutes long, then you can do that. So I think that would be one of the places that I would, some of the things that you could do from a YouTube perspective. The good thing about that is you can take that same video content and you can reshare that, not the YouTube video, but the actual video itself, back to social. And you can also have it on your website so people can begin to discover you in multiple ways. So those are a couple of things that I would look to do. There's a chat there that I missed. I'm probably just gonna pop off the share screen so I can see the chats. Reasoning for not boosting ads. It's a good question. It's not about not boosting ads. It's not hitting the boost button. Like when you do a post on Facebook, they'll give you an option to hit the boost button. What I'm suggesting is not to do it that way. The best way to do it would be to go in and use the Google Ads Manager. It just allows you to be able to refine your ads to a little better than it is just to go and hit the boost button for your $5, $10, or $20 from there. So it's not boosting. You can still do it, but just in a different way. Anyone else have any questions? Anything?
I have a quick question. Well, it's probably not quick. I have a Facebook page, but I'm really not sure how to find. I think that there's more analytics available to me through the Facebook page, but maybe I don't know where to look on the website.
There is. So if you're on, the one thing that I would recommend if you don't have it set up is if you should have like a business manager account set up. You can do it. You can do it either way, but having the business manager account allows you to kind of go in and get some more of those insights. But there should be an insight. I'm trying to think of the new format now. If you're on your desktop and you go to your Facebook page, there should be an insights on the left-hand column on the side. I think that's where they have it now. I'll just have a quick look.
But
Within that, it should.
Having the business manager will give you access to more analytics than what's there on default insights. Is that correct?
Yeah, if you've got the Pixel, for example, there's a couple of things you can do with the business manager. So if you've got the Facebook Pixel installed on your website, you can actually go in and get some deeper data with in terms of like how your Facebook page works and also how your website works. So it'll actually provide you with a little bit of data, website data in terms of who the users are that are coming to your website, like Facebook users, where they live, age groups, demographics, from there. So there is more information that you can get within there to go and have a look. Typically, what I recommend is that if you're looking at your insights, the first place I would go and have a look would be Facebook, or would look at Google. But if you're looking for Facebook insights, things that I would look at would be, they'll give you post reach, but I would look at, the time of day. It's a couple things. One, I would look at the time of day that you posted. So again, when you go back to the, creating an avatar, if you think about, I'll go back to this, the teacher example. If you're trying to reach an educator and you're making a post at 10 a.m. in the morning and knowing that they're in school, the likelihood of them engaging is quite low. But if you were to make a post at 7:30 p.m. in the evening, then that engagement might be a little bit higher. So I would have a look at the time of day and the day of the week that you're making your post and see if it's working. And because sometimes people will kind of stick to a schedule, right? So like every Wednesday at 2 p.m. I post about XYZ. But maybe the sweet spot for you might be every Wednesday at 8 p.m. So until you kind of go in and do some of the testing and changing, you might not know. The second thing that I would look at when you get to your insights from a post perspective, I'd go and have a look at, if I post an image, do images do better than a text post, or do videos do better than an image post, or just a text post do really well? One thing that I can tell you now that's not going to do really well is posting a link directly back to your website. Facebook doesn't like that. Most social networks don't like pushing people away from their platform. So if you post a link back to your website, most networks don't like that. So they won't show your ad as much, because you're moving a user from you to your website. So.
Is that just with regards to ads, Sheldon? Like if you're just doing a post, you can drive to your site, right?
Yeah, drive to, like if you're doing ads, 100% you can drive them back to your site. But if you're doing a post, probably recommend not necessarily. Well, there's two ways to do it. If you go to put a link to a website, Facebook will automatically kind of grab that link and put it in. What we would typically recommend would be to put in like an image first, like put the image in first, and then you can put the link in. So the image becomes like the main focus and not the website. And you will get a little bit more of a boost that way.
Okay, thanks.
Another question is there, to use social media would be Facebook users. Good question. What I typically say about creating the avatars is that like not everyone is going to be your customer. So trying to narrow down a little bit more of who your audience would be, and it can be still broad, but at some point, maybe the easiest way to start there would be to eliminate who your customer is not, right? Think about like who you don't want to have as a customer, and so that way it kind of filters down in terms of some of the things that you might not want to have. Any more questions on anything in social, or can even take questions on anything with regards to marketing if you want?
Sheldon, I'll just take a moment to mention everyone, before you sign out, we've put some feedback links in the chat. We'd love to hear your feedback on today's event. We also have a feedback form regarding the impacts of COVID and how we can help you going forward. We really appreciate when you take the time to fill these out. They help us know how to help you, and they also help us secure funding for future events like this. Any more questions before we?
Alison, could I go back to the question that I had? He didn't quite. It wasn't what I meant.
Absolutely.
So if I know that my customer is mainly on Facebook, is it worth me even bothering to do Instagram and that sort of thing?
Sorry, yeah, no. I would probably recommend, if you know they're on Facebook, there's a pretty good chance they're probably on a second platform as well. What I would encourage would be to maybe spend a little bit of time on another network, just to see, as much as again, your audience are probably on Facebook, you may also have an audience, or you may find it easier to attract an audience on another network. But if you don't spend a little bit of time testing that platform to see if it works, you don't know if you could attract more, of the same audience. One thing with doing things on different platforms is that if you post something on Facebook, and while yes, I'm on Facebook and I'm also on Instagram and I'm also on Twitter, the 15 minutes that I'm spending on Instagram could be those 15 minutes that I see your post, but then when I go back to Facebook, I may miss your post, right? So that's more of the rationale. We'll kind of suggest if people have the time and resources to do multiple networks, is because depending on, again, how they're spending their day or what network they're on or how they're sharing or how they're splitting up their time, they may not see your post on Facebook, but because they also follow you on Instagram, they may see it there. Does that help?
Yeah, that's great. Thanks.
We have a question asking if this is recorded, and yes, it is being recorded, and we'll be posting it. We'll be sending it out through our newsletter, the Navigate newsletter. We'll be posting it on our new website and on our YouTube channel as well. If you've noticed, I just put a few links over in the side here for upcoming events as well. So Sheldon will be back with us on February 17th from 3 to 5, where he's going to delve into email marketing. And also on March 14th from 3 to 5, where we're going to talk about search engine optimization. So we're really grateful to have Sheldon back for those two events. Sheldon, you're a wealth of knowledge. I know personally I've learned a lot today, and a lot of things I want to apply to Navigate as well. And I'm like the people who've just made some comments there. I'm looking forward to going back and watching the video again, because there's definitely a lot of really useful information. We've also got, I'll just mention again, we have a new Navigate website that we're about to launch. There will be a business directory if you'd like to be included. We'll also be posting information on there about future events like this. So please stay tuned. And I did put the link here to subscribe for our mailing list. So if you do sign up for the Navigate mailing list, you'll get reminders for events like this directly to your inbox, as well as opportunities that come up for funding and different programs that are on offer from other support agencies as well. We also have our Entrepreneur Ecosystem Coffee Break coming up on February 18th from 11:30 to 1. And that's in conjunction, in partnership with Carol Spicer with Spicer Facilitation and Learning. The coffee break is a great chance to get together and meet other entrepreneurs, promote your business, and also learn about different topics that we address during each of those sessions. So it's pretty informal. Grab a coffee, come join us. If you're busy, we understand, hop on, hop off. It's a great way to connect with other entrepreneurs and also potential clients and funders. So before we go, I just want to say a huge thank you once again. Sheldon, this was fantastic. Looking forward to having you back in a couple of weeks. Thank you to Richard for partnering with us on this, Mary and Roshane for all your help in organizing it. And thank you to all of the participants who are here today. We had a really great turnout. Over 80 people registered and over at least 50 showed up from what I could tell. And I think some were coming in and out throughout the session. So it's great numbers, great to see. And a big thank you to our funders as well, without whom this would not be possible. So MyTax, the ACOA, and the Provincial Government of Newfoundland and Labrador. One last chance to ask questions if anyone has any before we head out.
And I guess I've dropped my LinkedIn. It'd be tough not to do a presentation on social media and not drop at least one of my LinkedIn social channels. So if you do have a question at some point down the road, or you didn't want to ask it here, my LinkedIn profile is in the chat. Again, with the presentation, my other channels will be there as well, but LinkedIn is probably one where I spend a bit more time and activity. So if you do have a question or you'd like to connect for any questions that you may have in the future, by all means, just hit that little button over there, send me a LinkedIn request, and I'll be happy to answer your question. I know there's people here, like Carol, for example, who I see on LinkedIn quite regularly. So great to see more of you there as well.
Absolutely. And thanks everyone for coming and asking your questions, participating, and looking forward to seeing you at the next events.
Thanks, Allison, Mary, Richard, and Sheldon. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks. You too, Carol.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, folks.
Sheldon, if you can stay for one moment, I have a quick question for you.
Yeah, no sweat at all.
Okay. Fantastic.